Hey folks, Ron here. Prepare to join me now on a straight uphill. We're going way up the top there. A straight uphill climb. One of the first vlogs I ever did was on the Sharon Tate or Manson murder home up here on Cielo Drive in Benedict Canyon, Beverly Hills. Now the house, as many people know, is gone. It was knocked down, and a big mega mansion was built where it stands. So all we're going to really see at best is the gate. But this is one of the first off, I've been interested in this case since a lot of you weren't even born. In the early 80s is when I gained interest in it. Uh, and I've done a lot of research over the decades. I'm going to try to tell you, as we make our ascent up the hill, a little bit of the official story that comes from the trial and the book Helter Skelter by Vince Bugliosi, the prosecutor. Maybe I'll throw in some of my own theories, because I'll tell you something, there's always more than meets to the eye. And now Charlie Manson obviously is dead. Lots of the Manson family are still alive. The interesting thing is most of them don't deviate from the story of the trial, that the murders were, for a couple of reasons. Number one, Bobby Beausoleil, Manson family member, had just been arrested for the Gary Hinman murders, and the girls wanted to create a quote-unquote copycat crime to try and get Hinman released. Actually, Mary Bruner had also just been arrested in Sandy Good, and Manson was freaking out. He said, all my young loves are being taken away from me. Also, they wanted to instill fear in Terry Melcher, Doris Day's son, the record producer, who had lived here, had rented the same house. Now, of course, Melcher knew that Manson knew that Melcher was living in Malibu, wasn't living up here at that time, but still, I think part of the motive was to send a message to Terry Melcher, because he allegedly had made some promises about giving a record contract to Charlie Manson, and it had not come through. But that's a very complicated case too. Ask Greg Jacobson. Also, the fact that the main motive, as presented by Vince Bugliosi, the prosecutor, is that Charles Manson wanted to ignite the race war he foretold, called Helter Skelter, where the blacks would rise up against the whites. There'd be a race war. Ultimately, the blacks would win, but not be able to take over the reins of governing the world. Charlie Manson, in the meantime, as foretold in the Bible according to him, would have had his ranks grown to 144,000 members of his so-called Manson family. They'd be hiding out at a pit in Death Valley, which he called the bottomless pit, or a hole, and they would emerge from the bottomless pit when the black race asked Manson to help him, or to help them take over the world. And ultimately Manson would then take over the world, govern the world, and be the ultimate benefactor of a race war. I'm going to show you some of the canyon. By the way, the canyon across the way, I've done 2 vlogs on that. One is, well, 3 I think. One is Falcon Lair, former home of Rudolph Valentino, and the other one was across from Falcon Lair is the house that Nick Carter, the Backstreet Boys, was renting during his reality show House of Carters in 2006. Let's get back to the Manson family, and hopefully these neighbors don't hear me and say, oh, another Manson freak. Anyway, I think there was more to the motive. So what happened was, of course, we all know that Charles Manson pulled aside Tex Watson, one of his trusted lieutenants in the family, and he said, go up to the house. This was from Spawn Ranch in Chatsworth. Go up to the house where Terry Melcher used to live, kill everybody in the house. Manson told Tex Watson to take some of the girls. He chose Linda Kasabian, who was new to the family. She'd only been there since July 4th, and this was August 8th, so she wasn't fully indoctrinated yet. She was the only one with a valid driver's license. Susan Atkins, Sadie Mae Glutz, a true believer if there ever was one, Leslie Van Houten, and Patricia Krenwinkel, also known as Katie. Manson told the girls, do what Tex tells you to do and leave something witchy, like a sign. Now, I say there are other reasons because in all the studies I've done, it seems there were more motives than just helter skelter and even just putting fear into Terry Melcher. Did Manson know? Now we know that Wojciech Fikowski, I don't want to victim bash here by any means, folks. So Wojciech Fikowski was a friend of Roman Polanski's from Poland. As we know, Sharon Tate was 8 months pregnant at the time of her death. Jay Sebring was up here with her, which was kind of interesting because he was an old boyfriend of hers and he lived very close on the Eastern Drive. That night, Wojciech Frykowski, like I say, was here. He was a kind of a failed filmmaker. By the way, I'm just seeing the top of that home up there, up on the hill. That's the Nick Carter house. And there's Falcon Lair. Can see that one as well. You can see the red tiled roof on that little white speck right in the middle of the frame. That's Falcon Lair. Sorry to digress. So, Jay Sebring was here that night. Abigail Folger, heiress to the Folger coffee fortune, was here that night. She was the girlfriend of Wojciech Frykowski. And like I said, Jay Sebring. Now, again, I don't want to victim bash, but Jay Sebring, and in particular Wojciech Frykowski. Frykowski was into some bad things. He was dealing a drug called MDA at the time. I think it's speed. And he was into drugs pretty heavily. They were into, reportedly, I don't know if any of this is true, S&M films, S&M orgies, porn movies, or whatever, porn films you could make in 1969. But in particular, the drug dealing and the drug use was dangerous behavior for Wojciech Frykowski. And supposedly he had burned some people in some bad drug deals. We know that one of the suspects in the case was a guy named Pick Dawson. He's dead. He was a one-time boyfriend of Mama Cass. He was very much into drug dealing. Drugs was unfortunately a big part of what went on in that era with this particular group of people. And it can be a dangerous occupation for sure. Anyway, I'm wondering, and a lot of people wonder, if Manson had contact with Frykowski in particular, because Tex Watson was doing some drug dealing on the side. That's what led Manson to shoot Bernard Crowe. That was another reason. Just before the murders, Manson shot a black man he thought was a Black Panther. He didn't want to shoot him, but there was some kind of altercation with a drug deal. And they were holding Tex Watson, a girl that was with Tex Watson. It was a big mess. Manson came in and shot him. Manson was already very paranoid. I'm going to pause here because somebody's checking me out. Here's another look at Falcon Lair there. And to the left of it, and the white building is the House of Carter house up there. You can barely see it. So were drugs involved in the murders? Oh, I was talking about Bernard Crowe, who went by the street name Lots of Papa. Manson shot him in an impulsive move, thought he killed him. Actually, Lots of Papa, Bernard Crowe actually survived. And not only did he survive, he and Manson passed each other later in the Hall of Justice downtown, and Manson did a double take like, "Whoa, you're still alive?" And I think Bernard Crowe said something like, "Hey, don't worry about it." And actually, I've heard that Bernard Crowe actually kept the bullet as a souvenir. "Hey, Charlie Manson shot me. This is the bullet he shot me with." Anyway, Manson was very paranoid that the Black Panthers, he thought he shot him and killed the Black Panther. Very paranoid that the Black Panthers were going to come after him and come after those at the ranch. I mean, there were some drug deals that had gone bad with some of the Straight Satan motorcycle gang. Once Manson started dealing, and his people started dealing drugs to not a huge extent, but to some level, that's when problems escalated big time. Okay, the fence in front of me there ahead of us, that's all we're really going to see. There's some cars there, so I really don't know who was there. Last time I was here, I think there was a Grubhub delivery, and they opened the gate for a minute. But I didn't get to see in. So we know the facts beyond that. The Manson family came up here. Tex Watson jumped over the fence on the right side, cut the phone lines. Obviously no cell phones then, so it was just all landlines. They saw Steve Parent coming up the driveway, and they shot him. He said, "Please, I won't tell anyone." That was interesting in itself. Did he see something before he was shot to say that? Or what, they say he was shot first. Was he shot last? Did he hear the gunfire in the house? Why was Steve Parent, delivering a clock radio at midnight to the caretaker, William Garrettson, the 19-year-old caretaker who was not harmed and not found out? First, Garrettson, the caretaker, said he didn't hear anything. He was recovering from a hangover that night. He was out of it. He didn't know what was going on. Next, as the years went by, he said he did hear screaming. I mean, Abigail Folger was killed right outside Bill Garrettson's cottage. Bill Garrettson was never harmed or found. First, he said no one came to his door. Then later, he said his door turned, the doorknob. But he's dead as well. But he never said anything other than there's rumors that he said that some hippies picked him up in Benedict Canyon and took him up here to the house. He had been on Sunset that night getting cigarettes and booze, and he said, no, you don't take me all the way up, and they insisted. This fence, by the way, is it. It's beyond the fence here. There are a lot of inconsistencies, and that's all I can really say about a lot of things in this case. They've changed the address, too. It's a huge mega mansion. By the way, I've shown this mansion in at least 3 other vlogs. So if you look here at the rest of my channel, look up, Manson Murder House or Sharon Tate Murder House, you can see it from the other side of the hill. Definitely when I did the vlog on across the street, across on Bella Drive over there. Winifred Chapman ran, I believe, to this house here. I believe it was his first house, but I'm not positive. That was the maid at about 8 in the morning the next morning, and she was screaming, murderers, bodies, murderers, bodies. She had just come from inside the gate there. Now, the irony is, and thank God this happened, thank God, if Susan Atkins didn't have such a big mouth. The Manson family was picked up twice. First at Spawn Ranch for auto theft, but the charges didn't hold and they were out of jail quickly. Come on, what are you looking at? My dog is fascinated by something back there. And then the Manson family was picked up again months later at their new hideout, Barker Ranch in Death Valley, where they were hoping to stay, destroying earth-moving equipment. They were getting ready for World War III. They were acting like Rommel during World War II, getting tanks. They were converting dune buggies. It was really insane, literally. But when they were all hauled to jail, Susan Atkins was taken to the Sybil Brand Institute for Women, the women's jail, and apparently she was very popular with the women in jail there, extremely popular. But she befriended 2 prostitutes named Virginia Graham and Ronnie Howard, and she told both of them, I think she told Virginia Graham first, yep, Charlie Manson, he's our leader, and guess what? Those murders up at those movie stars' house up in Beverly? We did it, it's us. And Virginia Graham first, and then Ronnie Howard both talked to the police, and that's how the case got solved. So thank God Susan Atkins, dumbass, loose lips sink ships. If she would have kept her mouth shut, they either would have gotten away, possibly, or committed more murders as time went by. So again, thank God she was dumb enough to open her big trap, and they got caught. That's just my little side note there. But it'll always be a fascinating case. Manson was a fascinating dude. He was, I don't like to judge my subjects. I think Charlie Manson was, as evil as Hitler. Actually, he admired Hitler very much. But if you watch Manson interviewed by, first one I saw, I think, was Tom Snyder. Tom Snyder. Tom Snyder in 1981, and Geraldo Rivera after him, who was very condescending and challenging to him. And I think Diane Sawyer later on in the 90s. Newell Emmons, who was a friend of Manson's, knew him in jail and wrote a book about him, admitting, Charlie's craziness. He said that Manson would just, it was extremely clever. He'd just put on a big show for these reporters, these interviewers, and he would always flash hand symbols and do eye rolls and things that they said were secret messages to the Manson family members. If you watch the interviews, watch for it. And he does talk in like a schizophrenic way. Was Charlie schizophrenic? He was never officially diagnosed as that, as far as I know, but he seemed to be in and out a lot. Psychopathic? Who knows? But the Manson family started out in 1967 on their bus, just basically a commune of sex, free love, sex, drugs. And then there was a turn. There was a turn in late 68, early 69, and then it became violent. Actually, it became violent very quickly. And the culmination was, unfortunately, these murders and the next night of murders of the LaBianca family. And there's a lot of mystery about that as well. Okay, folks, this time I think I did a little more proper explanation. And again, I've read all the books and I've seen the documentaries and the interviews, and I've been studying this case for decades because I think it's one of the most fascinating cases in American history. That's where I get. I don't have particularly alternate theories, but look into William Garretson, the caretaker. Look into Bernard Crowe, Manson's paranoia about the Black Panthers, the copycat motive to get Bobby Bosley out of jail, who had just been arrested for the Hinman murder, which is actually where it started days before. I don't think it was just 1,000% the helter-skelter motive, and that's it. The drugs involving Wojciech Frykowski. Did the Manson family know Frykowski? Who knows? Probably not, because they said that I think that if they were being 100% honest, the Manson family members, even after all these years, would say, "Oh yeah, Frykowski said to me, 'You, Sadie, what are you doing here? You, Tex.'" And to this day, Tex Watson has never said there was any recognition from Frykowski, and he's in prison for life, so he has nothing to hide. But who knows? Who knows? Oh, okay, I'm glad I did this one. This was very meaningful to me. We're down the hill now. Okay, folks, thanks very much for watching and listening. My name is Ron. If you appreciate the channel, please give me likes. That's what really moves the channel along. Also, if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. And if you do subscribe, please hit the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. That'll give you indications as to when I post. And please, especially on this one, if you like, I'm just giving opinions, so there's nothing wrong or right about anything I said as far as I know. The facts I presented are correct. The speculation, that's just opinion. But if you have comments about this or anything else, it always provides for an interesting dialogue, so I'd like to hear them. Okay, folks, thanks. We'll see you at the next location. Bye-bye.